Hi, I'm Matt Pratton. I'm the Senior Analyst for Eastern Europe here at Intelligence Fusion. And in this video, I'll be providing an update on the Wagner Group in light of some recent developments. The date and time of this briefing is 24th of August 2023, as at 14:28 hours. And the latest date of information we have for this briefing is 24th of August 2023, as of 12:56 hours BST. Now, overnight, our analysts came across multiple reports stating that a jet transporting Wagner Group owner Yevgeny Prigozhin, along with 9 others, was reportedly shot down by surface-to-air missiles over the Belarus district in Tver Oblasts. A number of videos, as well as statements from locals, indicated the presence of contrails and other indicators of surface-to-air missiles. And furthermore, reports indicated Russian government officials confirming the death of Yevgeny Prigozhin and these other 9 personnel, as well as Russian state media outlet TASS confirming this to be the case. However, rather than a surface-to-air missile shooting down the plane, according to TASS and Russian government officials, the plane crashed. Among the nine other passengers killed in this incident is one Dmitry Utkin. Now, this man was the founder of Wagner Group, as well as being a former Spetsnaz officer. This man is essentially the top commander of Wagner Group. Now, we're considering this incident. There are a number of significant contextual factors behind Yevgeny Prigozhin's and Dmitry Utkin's death. First of all, this incident comes barely 2 days after Yevgeny Prigozhin re-emerged after a bit of a hiatus, where he released a video on or around the 22nd of August 2023, where he appears to be in Africa, and he was stating that the Wagner Group was recruiting personnel in Africa, exploring minerals, fighting Islamists, fighting criminals, and carrying out a range of other activities across the continent. Now, this video came in during the same time as the beginning of the BRICS summit down in South Africa. And the significance of this summit is that for Russia, as well as other members of the BRICS forum, is they are allegedly set to announce a means of financial exchange which will potentially challenge the dominance of the US dollar. Now, when it comes to the hiatus I mentioned before, now, not too long ago, barely 2 months ago, Yevgeny Prigozhin, of course, led a mutiny where he took Wagner Group personnel from Ukraine and attempted a march on Moscow. And this came as a result of rifts developing between Wagner Group and Russia's military leadership. The mutiny ended, of course, with Prigozhin agreeing to move to Belarus as long as take the Wagner Group personnel with him. And since this move to Belarus, this has caused a number of concerns for neighboring countries, in particular for Poland and the Baltic states, who, since noticing the relocation of Wagner Group to Belarus, have been bolstering their security and troop presence along their respective borders with Belarus. Another factor to consider is the type of operations Wagner Group have been carry out in Africa as opposed to what they've been doing in Eastern Europe. Now, unlike their sort of more frontline conventional role that they've been carrying out in Ukraine, as well as to a lesser extent in Belarus, where they've used a number of personnel up to and including releasing convicted criminals from prison. When it comes to operations in Africa, these have a much more strategic level focus of advancing Russian interests. In African countries, Wagner Group tends to carry out operations such as private security, training, and intelligence gathering. And when you consider those sorts of tasks and compare them to the operations that Wagner Group were doing in Ukraine and to another extent Belarus, there's a major difference in in operational dynamics. First of all, for operations like intelligence gathering, etc., more strategic level strategic focus, this requires much more professionally trained personnel, and also they function best in a more clandestine or even covert manner rather than sort of out for public view. So, considering the initial information regarding the plane being shot down, as well as the contextual factors, there are a number of assessments we can make from this incident. First of all, Based on the initial report, based on a lot of the reports surrounding the Yevgeny Prigozhin's and Dmitry Utkin's death, it's most likely that the plane transporting them was most likely shot down as opposed to a plane crash. Based on what information we've been able to gather online, but also consider the contextual factors surrounding Yevgeny Prigozhin. Barely 2 days ago, he'd released a video which outlined operations of Wagner Group in Africa just before the commencement of the BRICS summit, and these sorts of operations are quite politically sensitive. And of course, talking about them in the lead up to a major summit would of course be quite an embarrassment for both President Putin and the Russian government. When you consider that, and also consider that barely 2 months ago, Yevgeny Prigozhin was leading an attempted mutiny on Moscow, that too was an incident which was highly embarrassing for both President Putin and the Russian government. Of greater concern, though, is the death of Dmitry Utkin. Now, whilst Yevgeny Prigozhin was the owner of Wagner Group, Dmitry Utkin was, of course, the sort of more operational commander. Essentially, Yevgeny Prigozhin was the money behind Wagner Group, whereas Dmitry Utkin was more the brains. And so with this incident, Wagner Group have lost its top operational commander. So this leaves the capabilities and leadership of the Wagner Group in jeopardy, as well as considerations as to what does the future hold for the Wagner Group. Pretty much any sort of replacement leadership of the Wagner Group going ahead is going to face some significant challenges, because with the sort of operations that Wagner Group carry out in Africa especially, these are simply too important to just be shut down. So regardless of who takes over Wagner Group, be it another PMC that gets set up in Russia, or possibly sort of a more direct takeover by the GRU, for example, whoever takes over the Wagner Group is going to face probably two major challenges. The first will be maintaining continuity of operations, as new leadership will be facing a major adjustment period. And when it comes to the adjustment period, there's also a likelihood that the deaths of Prigozhin and Utkin have the potential to create significant rifts amongst Wagner Group personnel, the sort of rifts that would likely lead to infighting. So in light of Prigozhin and Utkin's death, the replacement leadership of Wagner Group, whatever form that takes, is likely going to face significant challenges in quelling any infighting that occurs, and it will be vital for them to quell that sort of incident rapidly. So overall, there are a number of significant information gaps that we'll need to keep in mind. First of all, who is going to replace Yevgeny Prigozhin, and more so Dmitry Utkin? What does the future hold for the Wagner Group in terms of fallout? And what sorts of impacts, both short-term and long-term, will this have on Wagner Group's operations? Anyway, that's all we have for the time being, but nonetheless, we continue to monitor the situation and keep an eye out for the fallout of this incident. We'll be releasing more in-depth analysis in the coming days, assessing the impacts of the deaths of Yevgeny Prigozhin and Dmitry Utkin. Thank you very much for watching.